Welcome, I am Todd Raffel with ERE Media, and if you are watching this video by way of an embed, we are at ere.net among other places. It's one of our main sites, ere.net. And I'm here with, I'm here, he's there. I'm here with Richard Hadden. Richard Hadden is a co-author of the book Contented Cows Give Better Milk, and part of a whole series of Contented Cows books, which are making an analogy between cows and the production of employees if you treat them well. And he has a new book, Rebooting Leadership, and we're here talking about filters, ways that employers filter out, screen out job candidates for jobs, ways that Richard Hadden thinks aren't always such a good idea. Tell us about the first one of these ways. This one relates to industries. Tell us about that, Richard.
Yeah, Todd, hi, thanks. I think especially today with the employment picture being what it is, people sometimes, or recruiters don't always get a lot of bites at the apple, so it's really even more important. It's always been important, but it's even more important today to be sure that you're getting the right person pretty much the first time that you have a chance to bring someone in. So one of the filters that I see, as you mentioned, that people use, and I know what it comes from, but I'm just questioning whether or not it's necessarily the best filter, and that is to say, you have to have specific experience in a particular industry. One example would be banking, and for instance, if we're looking for a lending officer, then obviously banking is going to be where that has taken place. But let's say that you're looking for someone in, say, human resources or in information technology in banking. And sometimes the requirement will be, okay, but you need to have had experience in banking. I think recruiters ought to ask the question of the manager who's making that request, is that really the case? Because I think sometimes if we say that, banking, healthcare is another one, as an example. We may be using the wrong filter, leaving some really good people out of the mix and bringing in people based on what seem like good filters but may be irrelevant. So industry is one. Another one that you and I've talked about is that need to bring someone who's had specific task experience or used specific processes, specific software even. And again, I see this in a lot of different industries. And one of the examples that I can think of is, for instance, someone, say a project manager in a particular discipline, and you must have had experience using a particular methodology.
Yeah.
And I still think that is sometimes a short-sighted and not a particularly self-serving filter when people look at that. A lot of times different industries will say, well, our business is really different from everyone else. And yeah, I know some are really different. But if you look at it objectively, no, some are not. And if someone has the ability to learn certain skills, then I think it's worth the investment of time and money to train and develop people in those skills.
I see that a lot in job ads. They'll say some sort of database program or something that sometimes I've never even heard of it, and it's obviously something they've had for years. That's kind of, they have a legacy culture around it, which I totally understand. On the other hand, gosh, maybe first of all you could teach it, but second of all, maybe you find the right person, they may have a better idea for a better program.
That's right. Exactly right. Yeah. And so there are several things like that happen. I think we limit ourselves by not looking at different kinds of ideas. Microsoft SharePoint is an example of one that you see often when in recruiting for different kinds of positions. And Microsoft SharePoint, as an example, does take some learning. There's a learning curve to it, but people can learn it. I mean, everyone who's using it now, at one point, they didn't know how to use it. And I think we could say the same thing of almost any methodology, process, specific task, industry, all of those things. And so what I like to tell people is, as a general rule of thumb, kind of focus more on nature versus nurture. And let me explain what I mean by that. There are some things that cannot be developed in people, or if they can be, it certainly takes a lot longer to do. But there are things that I think recruiters ought to be looking for. For instance, a salesperson, a salesperson has to by nature have that kind of what I call aggressive articulation, to be able to, and to really to have a passion for the product or service that they're selling. Now, that's the kind of thing that has got to be native in that person if they're going to be successful in that position. But in terms of learning specific sales techniques or even sales software, reporting software, that's the kind of thing that I think we shouldn't use first as a requirement. Now, if you have people that are equal in all other respects, then that can be a good qualifier, but it's not where we should start. And unfortunately, I think it is where too many recruiters begin. And again, they're getting this from well-intentioned managers who say, you know, as you said, maybe based on a legacy culture, this is what we've always had, how it's always been, and we really want to make sure that someone has this particular discipline or experience. I'm just suggesting let's look at it another way.
Another one that you and I talked about, and I talked about yesterday with Kevin Wheeler, is credit.
Yeah.
And people are looking at credit ratings, and when I look around my neighborhood, you know, there's short sales everywhere, and honestly, a short sale, it sounds, if you don't know what it is, it sounds like a scary thing that maybe you're like in economic ruin, but they are everywhere in my neighborhood, and I have friends who are short selling, and it's not about economic ruin, it's about their house being underwater and some things like that, and it really is not that big a deal. And I mean, I'm not underplaying it, but I don't think that it's a mark on a person's character as far as getting a job.
Exactly.
But that could affect the credit rating.
Yeah, I remain unconvinced that credit rating is a relevant factor for most jobs. There are some exceptions, obviously, in financial services or in any kind of position where someone has direct control over finance, money, things like that. Obviously, there are some things that we have to use our discretion on. But I really believe that it is completely irrelevant for so many other kinds of positions. And I mean, I think it's not only, I think it's immoral, I think it's unfair, but I also think it's not smart from a business perspective to have people who have the ability, the potential, the talent, and especially when you consider that many people that have rough credit right now because they've been without a job or because the economy has been what it's been, are particularly eager to start work and probably particularly eager to do really well at the job so that they can dig themselves out of that credit hole. And to me, it seems completely irrational to use that as a way to disqualify people from a job. It, to me, is no more relevant. Credit history and credit score is no more relevant than race or gender. And after all, we outlawed those discrimination on those bases long ago. And I think it's high time that that become the way with credit history. There are about 12 or 13 states in the U.S. today that have laws on the books that either make that illegal or that restrict it in some way. There are 4 or 5 states right now that are considering legislation. I tend to favor less regulation rather than more, but if organizations can't see the business sense of throwing that aside as a filter, then maybe we do need to bring the law into it.
I think we can wrap up in a minute, but I'm guessing it could be one of those filters that employers put in there just to reduce numbers, that they maybe know that it's not necessarily directly related, but they're just thinking, all right, this will get me from 400 resumes to 200, so I think I'll go for it because it's a quick and dirty way. It's a little bit like there's a company I think that has like a 3.9 grade point average minimum or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They probably could buy the idea that you could be having a 3.8 and be as qualified, but I think part of it is reducing volume.
Yeah. So the question is that how you want to do it, or do you want to take a little bit closer and deeper look and really get the very best person? I think today, with things the way they are, again, you don't get that many cracks at it. If you get a position approved, you want to make sure that first time that you're getting the best person.
Thanks, Richard. It's been interesting, and I think we've touched on a number of subjects. We'll probably do another one just on discrimination against the unemployed, for example, and other things. So I think that we have plenty of fodder for future conversations. So in the meantime, I appreciate, again, Richard Hadden, co-author of Contention Cows Give Better Milk, and author of the new book, Rebooting Leadership. So thanks.
Thanks a lot, Todd.